So, Armoured Skeptic uploaded a video the other night, and I'm just going to lay it out for you. A lot of what he said was wrong. And what I mean by that is, there is just no good reason to be wrong about the number of things that he was wrong about in this video. Now, this is a video I'm not necessarily happy to be making. I don't like coming across as a contrarian when there's a dominant viewpoint on a topic. However, I care more about accuracy and truth than I do about what the majority of people think. So it's only natural for me to be the opposition when someone is factually inaccurate. And on top of that, if there's one thing I absolutely detest, it's mass hysteria. And there's nothing that causes mass hysteria faster than the spread of misinformation to a large number of people. On that note, Greg's video wasn't the only one making incorrect points about the whole YouTube and Google events of the past week, but it certainly has been the absolute worst I've seen in terms of actually telling anyone anything that even closely resembles useful information. In fact, there is so much wrong with it that I've had to cut out a bunch of things I was going to respond to because I don't really want to have to make 2 videos on this. So do know from the outset that just because I don't mention something Greg has said doesn't necessarily mean that it was correct. Anyways, Greg's pacing in this video was a bit on the erratic side, so we'll be starting off with a bigger piece to give it some context.
A little while later, YouTube announced that it was going to start a television streaming service. This was great news for everybody. Participating television networks would be part of a program where people could pay a subscription fee to watch television on YouTube, right on their computers. This appeared to be good news for all of us. This could have been a great way for all of us to grow a new audience of normal, non-internet fluent people that may have been interested in more deep subjects. But some of us were a little skeptical that we would benefit at all. Many of us had already started to experience a change in the organic growth of our video views and channel subscribers. Likely, all of the new implementations would make it harder for the general masses to even learn that alternative content exists outside of YouTube's popular family-friendly content. Our concerns were confirmed in March when YouTube announced they launched a restricted mode, a parental control that hides certain content, even entire channels, if they weren't age appropriate, I guess.
So the biggest thing wrong with what we just went through is that YouTube did not launch restricted mode in March. I kind of missed the mark to do a video on this when the whole controversy first happened, so I left it alone. But the fact of the matter is that restricted mode has been on YouTube for the past 7 years. It was first introduced back in 2010 when it was named Safety Mode. Its name didn't change to Restricted Mode until sometime between 2014 and 2015. Since then, nothing at all has changed about it. The event that went on back in March was that a bunch of LGBT content creators noticed that a lot of their content wasn't showing up in restricted mode, and then decided to throw a fit about it, which prompted YouTube to have to issue a public statement about not being intent on censoring LGBT voices. People in the skeptic community caught wind of this, and many of them, having never heard of restricted mode before since it is a completely benign and normal feature, concluded that it was something new designed to censor them. So, needless to say, the big hoopla a little while ago about restricted mode didn't prove anything about anything. The other thing Greg said a moment ago,
but some of us were a little skeptical that we would benefit at all. Many of us had already started to experience a change in the organic growth of our video views and channel subscribers.
This has absolutely nothing to do with any kind of censorship at YouTube as much as people would like you to believe otherwise. Instead, what happened was what always happens on YouTube every 3 to 5 years. The YouTube algorithm changed. And not only did the algorithm change, just before the new year came in, people in other spheres of YouTube were losing their minds about the fact that it did change, and many content creators took the time to explain exactly how it changed and why it was killing certain kinds of channels. Matthew Patrick over at The Game Theorists did a fantastic explanation of how the current algorithm works and how to keep your channel relevant with it.
Anyway, back at the beginning of 2015, YouTube said to itself, hey, if Netflix and the Kardashians can do it, well then by golly, so can we. And that was the key moment when they started making changes to become the next television. Yeah, it's called retention time. You've been talking about this since 2013 with your How Pewdiepie Conquered YouTube video. I hear you typing in the comments, and first off, well done. I'm glad you were paying attention. Thanks for watching for so long. And yeah, you're totally right. Retention time has been the driving force behind all of YouTube's systems since that point forward. But now, there's a twist. It's a small one, but it comes with huge ramifications. 2 words: watch minutes. When you search for videos these days, a lot of what you see has gotten longer. That's because YouTube's algorithm now cares about your watch minutes. Literally the amount of minutes you can get people to watch on your individual videos. The longer you watch, the more YouTube starts to feel like Netflix. In August, YouTube took the view stats from channels and poof, turned them into watch minutes. And views are hidden under there. Think that was just a little change in the creator studio? Nope. For better or worse, that was YouTube sending us a message loud and clear. If you want to show up on YouTube, it's not about views, you have to get minutes. And a lot of them. So even if you watch every second of a 3-minute video, you've still only watched 3 minutes of YouTube. If you watch 20 minutes of a 45-minute Let's Play video though, now all of a sudden you've got YouTube's attention. Sure, you watched less than half of the video, but 20 minutes is greater than 3 minutes. Even if that 3 minutes is something incredible like Corridor Digital or Devin Supertramp or Freddie Wong or This Hedgehog taking a bath. Those channels organically need hundreds of thousands to millions of views watching all 3 of those minutes to stay competitive and relevant in our search feeds and in our suggested feeds. Remember, YouTube doesn't see what you make, it only sees how many minutes people are watching it.
And finally, the ideas that Greg brought up with respect to YouTube TV don't really make a lot of sense. The entire point of YouTube TV is not to attract people who don't already watch YouTube. The point of it is to do 2 things. First off, it's supposed to make YouTube less reliant on ad revenue by having a paid service that a great deal of YouTube users could potentially want. And second, it's designed to make the people who already use YouTube stay on YouTube for even longer by removing the need for them to go to other websites or even back to television to see the things they like. As MatPat explains in his video, YouTube is now focused almost entirely on watch time, which means that the biggest goal for them is increasing YouTube's total watch time universally. They're not looking for more viewers watching some portion of YouTube. They're looking to make YouTube the primary media that their users consume, if not the only media that they consume. Anyways, Greg has even more misinformation about YouTube's restricted mode that seems to be an accepted idea among many people. Let's have a look.
The restricted mode, though it was only an option, is automatically active if the user is not logged in. This means that most of the content by alternative media is completely invisible to the vast majority of people who use the service. Normies who watch Vivo music videos and fail compilations. Most people that use YouTube don't even have an account, let alone regularly log in.
This is complete and total nonsense. Restricted mode is, and always has been, disabled by default, and not being signed in does nothing to change that. So while Greg would be correct to say that while restricted mode is on, the majority of content from the alternative media is hidden, he's wrong in saying that it's being hidden from most users of YouTube, because most users, account or not, have probably never even seen YouTube on restricted mode. Again, the fact that it had been around for a whole 7 years before anyone said anything about it should serve as a large indicator that it most likely isn't a problem for anyone and has been blown way out of proportion.
August 1st, 2017, The Guardian publishes an article claiming that YouTube is launching an AI bot designed to crack down on extremist content. The article says, YouTube is using machine learning along with human reviewers as part of a multi-pronged approach to tackle the spread of extremist and controversial videos across YouTube, which includes tougher stands for videos and the recruitment of more experts to flag content in need of review. It goes on to say, a month after announcing the changes and following UK Home Secretary Amber Rudd's repeated calls for US technology firms to do more to tackle the rise of extremist content. Jesus, when you write a sentence, keep in mind how much air fits in human lungs. Google's YouTube has said that its machine learning systems have already made great leaps in tackling the problem. I can't speak to Google's motivation, whether or not they made the decision based on Amber Rudd's call to action, but these changes announced by Google were specifically related to terrorism and terrorist-related videos. When they announced these changes, they were referring to literal ISIS videos, as per Amber Rudd's statement. Here's the statement Google made about the changes back in June. This is what this article is referencing. Google and YouTube are committed to being part of the solution.
Greg has just read through some very interesting pieces of information. Nothing Greg just read was wrong, or at least I have no reason to believe that it would be. What we'll be doing here is getting into the point I made in the title. Greg is about to make a critical failure when it comes to skepticism, but we'll get there in a moment. For now, let's take a second to highlight the two key points Greg has just explained. You have the fact that Google had received some form of government pressure from the UK, from Amber Rudd's call to action for US tech companies to do more to help stop the rise of extremism. And also that Google issued a statement about the upcoming changes back in June, where they specifically informed us that they would be taking steps to help curb terrorism and violent extremism. Clearly these two things fit hand in hand. And when you look at the bigger picture in this timeline of events, things do start to look a lot clearer. But for right now, we'll let Greg continue on this subject.
We are working with government, law enforcement, and civil society groups to tackle the problem of violent extremism online. There should be no place for terrorist content on our services. While we and others have worked for years to identify and remove content that violates our policies, the uncomfortable truth is that we, as an industry, must acknowledge that more needs to be done now. I fully agree that things like abuse, advocacy for violence, child pornography, things like that, blatantly illegal things, should be flagged, they should be removed. And to some extent, I'm sure that they are. But on our end, the commentary and alt media skeptic types, in practice, we only see how this affects our videos. Videos that report or comment on world events, like terrorism. They're getting flagged and demonetized and restricted. In practice, this policy serves to silence discussion about world events. Now, the original article we were reading goes on to say, YouTube said that it began working with 15 more NGOs and institutes, including the Anti-Defamation League, the No Hate Speech Movement, and the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, in an effort to improve the system's understanding of issues around hate speech, radicalization, and terrorism to better deal with objectionable content. So it's only been 2 months, and somehow their crusade to end terrorism has evolved into a big war on general controversial content? How did that happen?
Here is where Greg starts to go off the rails of skepticism. At no point did anything he read from that paragraph indicate that anything YouTube is doing has turned into a war against general controversial content. We'll get into that more in just a moment, but be aware that Greg is about to shove his foot into his mouth. Anyways, the other problem here is that Greg says that the YouTube policy serves to silence discussion about current events because those videos are being flagged, demonetized, and restricted. The restricted bit is most likely due to his earlier error about restricted mode. However, I'm pretty sure it's already been established that demonetization is not censorship. And as far as flagging goes, I don't think that's something you can actually blame on YouTube. Sure, they could do a lot more to protect channels from false flagging, but the problem with any flagging system is that it is inherently exploitable. Presumably, a video has to reach a certain threshold of flags before YouTube automatically responds by hiding the video, and then the flagging has to be deemed true or false from being looked at by an actual person. It's damaging to individual content creators when it's abused, but you have to understand why YouTube operates this way. This is a damage mitigation tactic, because YouTube can always give someone their video or their channels back. They can't, however, make a country's government stop penalizing them.
So it's only been 2 months, and somehow their crusade to end terrorism has evolved into a big war on general controversial content? How did that happen? Unless you can explain why the Anti-Defamation League needs to be involved with a terrorist dragnet. You should all remember the Anti-Defamation League back when they declared Pepe to be a hate symbol?
Greg, if you can't answer that question for everyone, then what is the point of anyone watching your video? People generally trust you as a source of information. They trust you to provide them with a reasonable and balanced perspective on the issues you talk about. And the reason that this pisses me off so much is that unlike the whole postmodernism jazz, which is a weird and complicated issue, this is a question that could have been answered with a very simple Google search. The Anti-Defamation League is an organization that has a strong and obvious social justice bias. That is undeniable when you consider the whole Pepe thing. However, the ADL Center on Extremism is considered to be one of the world's foremost authorities on Islamic extremism. They trained United States law enforcement personnel on terrorism and extremism and are considered to be the best non-governmental agency at what they do. So while, sure, there is a definite regressive left leaning in their organization, as can be easily seen by them promoting this implicit bias training, the fact cannot be ignored that they both recognize and help us defend against Islamic terrorism. So when you say,
Unless you can explain why the Anti-Defamation League needs to be involved with a terrorist dragnet.
The answer is that they are part of the reason the United States has had as few incidents of terrorism over the past decade as we have. In addition to that, it is painfully obvious that you did not do your research because you don't know who you're talking about. Now, branching out from there, I went ahead and had a look at all three of the organizations mentioned in this statement. The Institute for Strategic Dialogue is specifically a global counter-extremism organization that appears to be primarily focused on Islamic extremism in the Middle East, but also has a focus on neo-Nazi extremism in the West. Now, I don't necessarily mind them doing that, as there is a strong case for it being needed, but there's just as strong a case for them monitoring Antifa's extremism as well, so I hope they're keeping tabs on that. And finally, the most contentious of the three is the organization known as Hate Speech Watch, who apparently serves as a repository for hate speech published on the internet. Now, I went ahead and had a glance through their archives, which are surprisingly small, and I didn't see anything that wasn't related to white nationalism or white supremacy. Now, everything I saw was in English, so that probably heavily weights things in that direction, but the website itself relies on things being reported by regular people. So if you want to help them out, you may want to consider reporting extremist accounts other than just white nationalists to their database, so that they can get a more complete picture of what online extremism looks like. If I had to guess, I would say that Google is most likely using them as a basis for machine learning, which despite how unbalanced I might find their website to be, I absolutely cannot fault them for doing, because they do have a good collection of things that are undeniably anti-Islamic and white supremacist extremism. So, this is the exact kind of explanation that Greg's video should have contained. This is not the kind of topic that you can just sit there and speculate about when all the information you need is just a few keystrokes away from you.
This should go without saying, but I'm going to say this anyways. This is bad news bears for the alternative media. They're ramping up their efforts to disincentivize dissenting voices and restrict our abilities while using terrorism as an excuse to do it.
Greg, I am going to need some proof of that, because nothing that came up previously even remotely indicates that this is a safe assumption to make. Do you have some proof to back up your statement?
Anyways, here's proof to back up my statement. The article says, Google will begin enforcing tougher standards on videos that could be deemed objectionable, but are not illegal in the coming weeks. The company said that YouTube videos flagged as inappropriate that contain controversial religious or supremacist content, but do not breach any of the company's policies on hate speech or violent extremism, will be placed in a limited state. A limited state.
Roll credits.
So, what do you mean by controversial? What do you consider supremacist? Because based on what you've already started deleting or demonetizing, you don't have a great track record for being objective when making these distinctions. All we can take from this is that YouTube will be more strict with the vague rules they've already enforced. Plus, they're going to stop caring if it actually breaks any of the rules before they take action.
Greg, what? This conclusion is not supported by any evidence you've shown thus far. Now, I will grant you that YouTube's track record for demonetization has been anything but objective, but it hasn't really been subjective either. In fact, the best way of describing it would be semi-arbitrary. When the demonetization bot rolled out in 2016, the problem, as we found out through investigation, was that it was demonetizing videos left, right, and center. And I'm not just saying that as an idiom, this thing seriously pulled no punches. To date, the Young Turks claim that they have more than 500 videos demonetized, and Kyle Kalinske of Secular Talk has nearly 2,000 videos demonetized. In the video I did on this subject back when these events first transpired, I pointed out that even feminist channels were being hit by this. In addition to that, the video I did on the 1 in 4 sexual assault statistics also got hit. Now, since then, my video had been silently remonetized, without me even challenging it. At the time, I figured that since my video was on a very sensitive subject, that it was only natural that it wouldn't be advertiser friendly. However, YouTube apparently decided that it was. The rational conclusion to draw from all this new information is that this new
limited state
will only apply to a subset of videos that already fall into the not advertiser friendly category of videos. So if to begin with, you're a creator who doesn't get very many videos marked as demonetized, then you essentially have nothing to worry about, because the criteria for that hasn't changed.
6 days later, on August 7th, YouTube released a blog? Oh, Jesus. I don't know how they get away with calling these things blogs. YouTube announced that they were modifying the whole demonetization thing, adding a new level, a medium size, symbolized with a yellow $sign. And that indicates that a video is sort of advertiser friendly, as in it doesn't really break any advertiser rules. And YouTube will still share their YouTube Red revenue with you, which is a little bit of money, I guess. But other than that, advertisers have to voluntarily opt in to putting ads on restricted videos. So the revenue in the skeptic, commentary, alternative media genres, they'll be hit pretty hard by this.
Greg, no, that is not what that document says. None of the advertiser policies have changed since March. The only thing this document is saying is that they're rolling out new icons that will improve transparency for us content creators. This is an unnecessarily verbose document, but literally nothing has changed, nor will anything change related to monetization as far as we know at this moment. Dude, you are killing me here. Can the next thing you say just be correct?
A YouTube spokesperson said, "The videos will remain on YouTube behind an interstitial, won't be recommended, won't be monetized, and won't have key features including comments, suggested videos, and likes." So basically, these videos are invisible. These videos will not be deleted per se. They'll be thrown into purgatory where nobody will find it. This is what we call shadow banning. And they'll do this to not only videos, but to entire channels perhaps. YouTube is the world's largest video hosting service and is one of the places extremist and objectionable content ends up, even if it originates and is removed from other services, including Facebook, making it a key battleground. I really appreciate the way The Guardian is framing this. Oh god, I'm complimenting The Guardian. This is a great way of looking at YouTube. It's a platform for everybody. Anybody can upload anything that's legal. Obviously, bad people are going to upload illegal things, and we can't really blame YouTube for not catching every single one of them right away. There's too many users to catch all of them. But with recent events, we get the perception, at least, that the media wants everyone to see YouTube as some willful harborer of extremist videos. And the way YouTube responds to these accusations communicates to the media that they are guilty of this and that they will bend to any manufactured outrage the media uses against them, and that YouTube will throw any one of their creators under the bus to save face. This makes all of us look bad.
Yes, Greg. Out of everything else you've said so far, this is the one thing that you're actually completely correct about. However, the thing about this that you and many other people have yet to pick up on is that YouTube is in no position to fight back. I made 2 videos about Pewdiepie's situation. One was me going over the facts and giving supporting information for some theories about the state of affairs at the time, and the other one was looking back on my theories with new information that Pewdiepie gave us. Pewdiepie dropped what I believe is a bombshell that went right over most people's heads. From here, I want to address the other thing I claimed in my last video. Do you think it's possible that behind the scenes, the mainstream media have been pressuring advertisers to force YouTube to make changes that are harmful to content creators? Do you think it's possible that the mainstream media has been threatening advertisers with the possibility of them being publicly slandered for appearing alongside particular videos unless they make YouTube crack down on their content creators? I mean, realistically, the only power the mainstream media has over YouTube is through the fact that they know how to craft any narrative they want that borders on libel without crossing into that line where it becomes a crime. We just saw this with Felix, in fact. This one hasn't exactly been proven by Felix, but here, just listen to what he has to say, because it could not possibly be any closer to confirming this.
I didn't want to say this because it didn't feel necessary, but there wasn't just pressure to get my show cancelled. Along with other brands that I work with that they reached out to, YouTube also had pressure to demonetize my entire channel, essentially getting me fired. Luckily, my videos does not go against community guidelines, so it didn't, but they tried.
When Felix says that YouTube was being pressured into demonetizing his channel, this is actually a really, really big piece of information. You see, there are only 2 ways that could have happened. Either the Wall Street Journal was pressuring YouTube by threatening them directly, which seems unlikely because they're not that powerful on their own, or the Wall Street Journal went around YouTube and threatened its advertisers into pressuring YouTube into demonetizing PewDiePie's channel, which seems like the most likely course of action they could have taken. And right here with this little bit of information from Pewdiepie, I think we can say that's probably what happened. We haven't received any direct confirmation of this, because again, YouTube and its larger advertisers are the only ones who can confirm it. But when you look at the course of events from February to now, all of the events line up and support this theory even more. Now, just to be clear, I am not attacking Greg here for not having seen my video, because in all honesty, chances are that he won't even see this one. However, for any of my newer subscribers or viewers who haven't seen those two videos, I strongly recommend going back and having a look at them for some more contextual information about why YouTube responds to the media the way it does. For right now though, let's finish up what's wrong with Greg's video.
Out of nowhere, on August 1st, 2017, Professor Jordan B. Peterson lost access to his YouTube channel and his Google account. No warning, no reason given, just poof, gone. Peterson appealed and was denied, again with no reason given. He rallied his substantial followers, loyal followers I might add, to petition to petition YouTube to reinstate his accounts. Later that day, they were awarded back to him. Again, no reason given. Clearly, this is a sign of something more nefarious going on. This can't just be about advertisers. Someone at Google wanted Peterson gone.
Greg, what the hell are you talking about? Quite frankly, this is yet another mass hysteria gravy train that I am not stepping foot on. Based on what happened, I have a very hard time believing that Google did this intentionally. They have removed far larger and far more influential channels and users for less than being guilty of wrongthink. And quite frankly, Google does not have to answer to Jordan Peterson or his fans. What I'm saying here is that if Google wanted Peterson gone, he wouldn't have an account right now. And honestly, jumping to a conclusion like this, with no evidence whatsoever, is incredibly unbecoming of someone calling themselves Armoured Skeptic. Jordan Peterson, in the Toronto Sun article you vaguely referenced, even stated that it was impossible to tell whether it was a technical issue or a mistake on Google's part. Now, some of you might see it as too charitable to assume that it was a mistake, as much as I might see it as uncharitable to assume malice. But the fact of the matter is that no one has any proof of anything. So, I'll ask you two questions. Is the chance that it was a mistake or error greater than 0? If the chance is greater than 0, then by what logic can you exclude it as a possibility? Now, when you look at what Jordan Peterson actually said in the article, he seems to be taking a far more balanced approach to this whole thing, because I'm sure he knows, like I know, that Google, as a rule, does not tell you why your account has been disabled. So he wasn't being treated any differently from anyone else in that regard. And his comments here are more so directed at Google's existing policies than specifically at his interaction with them. Greg, seriously, if you're not going to use skepticism, then I am going to have to demote you from Black Tie Knight to like Black Tie Squire, or Gentleman, or Knave. Is that what you want, Greg? Do you want to be the Black Tie Knave? If not, then you really need to start doing your research before you go running your mouth. The majority of things I pointed out in your video could have easily been taken care of by just doing a simple Google search. Then you might have been incorrect about a few things, maybe, but I wouldn't have found it necessary to respond to you aside from maybe like leaving a comment or a tweet or something. But seriously though, you guys have to understand that I don't have an axe to grind against Greg or anything. There is just way too much misinformation in this one video.